All right, everyone. Welcome to the Real Life Examples Software Sales Follow-Up Emails webinar. My name is Katie Connolly. I am the Buyer Advisor Director here at Capterra. If you're not, I've been with Capterra for about 5.5 years and manage our pay-per-lead program. If you're not familiar with that program, don't worry. I'm going to talk about it briefly a little later on. First of all, I really want to thank all of the vendors who sent in great examples of their email follow-up. We really appreciate it. Just so everyone's aware, I'm not going to have time to go through all of them on this webinar. So if you did send me your outreach and it's not in this webinar, your Capterra representative will be reaching out to give you some personal feedback. Also want everyone to know that this webinar is being recorded and we will be sending out the recording and the slides tomorrow. All right, so let's get started. So the agenda for today, it's pretty simple. First, I'm going to share some interesting and somewhat alarming statistics about vendor outreach. Then I'm going to share 10 tips that we've learned over the years from our vendors on how to improve email outreach. And then I'm going to dive right into critiquing emails that were sent to us. We have a great range of offers today, everything from white papers and ebooks that are more top of funnel to trials, demos, and even pay-per-lead follow-up, actually. That's more bottom of funnel. And then I'm going to end with any questions you guys may have. All right, so let's dive into some of these statistics. So I find this first one pretty alarming. I'm sure you guys will too. But according to a study done for the Harvard Business Review, 71% of qualified leads are never even followed up with by email or phone. And then for the ones that do follow up, it's definitely not quick enough. The next statistic is the average response time for companies that do have some sort of lead response system in place is 46 hours and 53 minutes. That's almost 2 full days, and that's way too long. And I am going to focus the majority of this webinar on the email outreach, but I have to say and recommend, do not be scared of the phone. As your prospects move farther down the sales funnel, really you need to call them as soon as possible. On average, sales reps make 1.3 call attempts before giving up. And for the best response rate, all leads should actually be called between 6 to 9 times. And actually, your chances of contact decrease by 10 times if you wait longer than 5 minutes to call a new prospect. So that's my little rant about making sure you guys call your leads, especially the demos and trials and the leads farther down the pipeline. So let's move on to some email tips. Okay, so over the years, we've learned a lot from our thousands of software vendors, and I've narrowed it down to 10 tips that can help lead to more successful emails. First of all, you have to have a clear objective. There should be a point to every email you're sending. The goal is to get these prospects to actually engage with you guys and see value in what you're sending. So try to avoid the generic message like just checking in or just following up. You also want to make sure you're getting personal with them. Add the buyer's name to the intro. So instead of hello or hi there, it's hi Katie. Or add the company name to the subject line or the body. And make sure that your emails are actually coming from someone and it's not just coming from a general email address like info@. You also want to make sure you keep your subject line short and sweet. People tend to just scan the subject lines, so ideally those should be under 50 characters. Also, make sure it's mobile friendly. These days, 72% of US adults send and receive their emails on smartphones at least weekly. And focus on the buyer, not your product or your offer. You have a much better chance of the buyer engaging with you if you're actually focusing on how your product can help them and not just spitting facts at them about how great your product is. Also, we want to keep it short, especially for this first email. Your first email outreach really should be between 5 to 6 sentences. If you have too many offers or calls to actions in one email, it's going to overwhelm someone. And if you do have a lot to say, it's very easy to split that out into a nurture track and use it for multiple outreaches along the month or the process. Also, you want to limit your images. A picture in your signature is fine, and an image here and there is fine, but if you have huge email headers and footers, it just makes it really clear that it's not a personal email, and that also can affect the load time. We also want to make sure you're ending every email with some sort of question. Again, the goal is always to engage and get a response from these buyers. Also, include your contact information in a signature. This is going to help build trust and credibility for you and your company. And last but not least, follow up. I'm going to be focusing this webinar mostly on that first email you're sending your prospects, but it's really important that you're continuously following up with your prospects and creating a series of follow-up messages, probably between sending something every 3 to 7 days. So, all right, so let's dive right on in. Okay, this first example was sent to us. It's for a white paper download. And the first thing that immediately sticks out to me is where it's sent from. So no reply. Again, as I mentioned, that is more likely to go to spam. It's not very personal. And it also makes it really hard for the buyer to respond to you. That immediately it says no reply. So if they have a question or if they're interested in something, they know and we know they're going to have to open up a new email. Then let's move on to the subject. So hi, full name. Thanks for downloading the brand toolbox white paper. So I'm not sure we need full name there. We probably could just do first name. I do like that we're making it personal, maybe a little bit on the longer side. We could easily test out different subject lines like your blank white paper, or just trying to keep it a little bit more generic and shorter. Then let's move on to this huge header right here. So immediately I think this is a little too big. On a mobile phone, that could really affect the load time. And it does, with this header and this footer, it does make it look a little bit newsletter-ish and not obviously a personal email. And then this hi there. So we're able to make this personal, but we still have hi there. I would honestly suggest flipping that and really having the hi there be hi name of the person and continue on. Love that we start with thank you. If someone's downloading a white paper or a brochure or an ebook, definitely makes sense to thank them for downloading it. Then let's jump down to this section. If you have trouble downloading the white paper, please request one to be emailed to you here. This here actually opens up a new email at info@, which seems a little silly to me that this person gave you their contact details for the white paper, and then if they had any trouble getting the white paper, we're asking for them to go, email you to get another copy of it. If they've already given you their contact details, absolutely just include the link. Get your free copy. Here's the link. Also, I suggest ending with a piece of information that really helps them or interests them. So instead of this, generic, we hope that it gives you the information you need, maybe have, thank you, here's the link, and end with something like, on average, people spend 2.5 hours a day searching for information. Let blank cut that in half for you. Something that's, helping them see the benefit of your solution. And then diving into this bottom section. So I'm assuming Robert is probably the salesperson. So immediately my first reaction is, okay, this email should have just come from Robert and should have been signed by him with his signature with his contact details below. That way, of course, if anyone had a question, they could respond. And so also then for more information, not really that appealing, trying to end with a question here would really help to continue on that conversation. All right, so here's another example for a white paper that was sent to us. It's 2 emails. The first one is automatically sent when someone wants the white paper. This is just the generic email that's sent to them. And then the second one is sent very quickly afterwards, probably 30 minutes to an hour, and it's from the salesperson. So with this first email, I'll focus on the download section. So download these days can have a negative connotation with it. So I suggest, especially it says to download your white paper, click this link, download white paper. So just removing all of that and just saying, here's your free copy with the link. Make it very simple. And then in terms of the third sentence, do feel free to contact us with any questions by replying to this email. We're happy to discuss sales forecasting with you. Having that sentence and then having your sales guy reaching out 30 minutes afterwards can lead to confusion and even cause frustration for the buyer. If I had a question and so I immediately email sales, and then Ty's reaching out to me, asking me if I have any questions, and he's here as a resource, that's confusing. I thought I already responded. So I suggest cutting that sentence from the first email and end with how your company can really help them. Play off the fact that they're interested in forecasting more accurately. And then moving down to Ty's email, I do think we could test out a more catchy subject line here, maybe playing off the white paper again, increase ROI with forecasting software, something simple. And also, I'm not sure if this is maybe a typo, but the name of the white paper in Ty's email is not matching the name of the white paper that's sent automatically. So make sure everything's consistent and clean. And also, we're going to want to, again, end with a question. So you may not want to get Frank on the phone immediately since he did just download a white paper, but keep the conversation going. Asking a question like, how are you currently forecasting sales? Something that will keep them engaged and have that conversation continue. And lastly, instead of wasting your email with, your mentioning your phone number in the body, have a signature. And I will say in some of these examples, as we move forward, the signature did get cut off. So be aware, and I'll point that out. But in this case, Ty didn't have his signature. So we just had the ending be the question, and then Ty, and you had his website and his email and his phone number. Sometimes people will even add an address for them. Again, it just helps build that credibility about Ty and the company. All right, so this example, I definitely want to start out with this one. Kind of funny. So this was sent to us, and it says, thanks for checking out blank. As I was reading through this, I realized I have no idea what this email is being sent in response to. There's a lot going on here. The first sentence, I thought you may be interested in this ebook. And then the next thing's about, check out our overview video. And then the third line's hinting at, let's have a call. So there's a lot going on, and there's no clear objective there. So we really, whatever they were interested in, that should be the focus point. And then, of course, again, ending with a question. And right here, the I'm curious about what you do and how creative workflow may be applicable, that's close. We're really close to asking a question there. But I would probably tweak it to something like, I'd like to learn more about blank, the buyer's company, and how creative workflow may be applicable. Are you available? Are you free Thursday for a 5-minute call? Tie it back to continuing that conversation. And I want to give Brittany the benefit of the doubt. She did have a great signature here with her logo, a tagline, her title, her office mobile, and a link to the website. So good job there. All right. So this email was sent to us, and it was for a brochure download. And I have to say, I really like the intro. It may be a little, I'm sorry, not the intro, the subject line. It may be a little long. The inventory and accounting solution company name goes here, has been looking for. We could always try cutting that to just the solution blank has been looking for. And one thing I did notice, the software is actually referred to in 4 different names really in this email. So that could cause a little confusion. So it's the inventory and accounting solution, then it's blank distribution and accounting software, then it's blank ERP, and then it's just their company name. So again, make sure we're being consistent there. And in terms of this first section, I got to give you props that, I love trying to focus, starting off the email, focusing on the buyer, but there's a lot going on here. Do you have money tied up in inventory that isn't selling? Are staff wasting time trying to find inventory that is incorrectly placed? How much of this inventory is dust covered and hasn't been moving? That's a lot of questions and can be very overwhelming all in one email. So I suggest breaking those out and using those pain points for multiple emails. Create a nurture track, trying different ways to engage these buyers. Focus one email on each of those pain points, trying just a way after way out of getting them on the phone and starting that conversation with them that your product is a good fit for them. What I would probably do here, trying to keep it short and straight to the point, I'd thank them for the download of the brochure and then immediately jump into how this, jumped a little ahead for us. Then immediately jump to how the solution can help them better manage the investment that they've made in their inventory. So tie it to them and how it's a benefit for them. And then here, where the want to learn more, let's talk about how blank can help manage inventory to add to your bottom line. It's great. I love that we're tying it back to them again, but let's make that a direct question. Like, let's talk about how blank can help better manage inventory and add to your bottom line. When are you free? Are you free next week? Try to be very direct with these people so it's clear that you're waiting for a response. And I did also notice just a couple of typos. Again, make sure there's no period here, no period after the name. We want to make sure it's all clean. And also the email address. You can contact me at success@blank for more information. When Dave sent us this email, he sent it from his personal email address. So I'm not sure if this email actually is coming from Success or if it was coming from Dave, but whoever it's coming from, again, making it as easy as possible for them just to reply is key. And, if you have your name on it, Dave, I would suggest just sending it straight, a response back to your personal email, than even tying in a new email address. Okay, so this email was sent to us for a demo, First of all, I'm sure you guys all are aware of it by now. The hello would be great if we could personalize this and have a name tied to it. Then also let's focus on the first paragraph. Do you have any questions? The information we emailed previously with steps to review the software online is still valid, so you are welcome to continue looking at the demo. I don't know what that first email looked like or what those steps are, but that does seem kind of confusing to me. Ideally, if you had sent them steps and a link, I'm assuming, to the demo, well, in your first outreach, let's include that link again. We want to make it as easy as possible for them to, again, continue their conversation with you, try your software. So having something like, I included another link to help you download the demo or access the demo if you haven't yet, I think would make a lot more sense and make it easier for the buyer to start that demo if they haven't yet. And also this long list of features that we have here. So one thing we want to try to do with these emails is seek first to understand. If I was a buyer, I may not need all of these features that you have listed. And maybe something I do need is stuck in the middle, but just from looking at this, it's overwhelming. People tend to just skip right on over all that and move down the email. There's a lot going on. So it makes more sense to focus on the benefits of your solution, and then during your conversation with them, bring up how your solution can help with specific features that it has. Just listing all the features is very overwhelming. And also, nowadays, we don't want to underline words in emails that aren't hyperlinks. You can still bold things and use italic, but it can get frustrating if someone associates underlining a word to a hyperlink and they're clicking it and it doesn't work. And all in all, I will say this email is on the longer side. And when you're looking through this whole email, you get to the bottom of it, you see some testimonials, thank you and have a great day. There's no ask there. There's no question. If I was a buyer, there's no need for a response. There's no question you're asking me. So again, I know I've mentioned this a couple times already, but ending with a question is key, especially when it's demos and trials and other offers I'm going to be getting into, because those are farther down the pipeline or the funnel. All right, and let's talk about testimonials. So testimonials, it's an interesting idea. They aren't usually sent widely in emails, I feel like. They do make it seem obviously a little bit more stock and not like a personal, not like a personal email sent. But I think that it's a great idea to test out. One thing I would recommend is using them, end with your question, and then have your signature and have a testimonial below it. So it's by all the credibility building and by all the additional ways this buyer could contact you. And pick your testimonials wisely. It's very easy to use, or using the words like best. Easy to use. Nowadays, a lot of solutions, everyone's saying they're easy to use. So I love the first testimonial in this of with the blank, our enrollment costs per new student has been reduced by 50%. That's awesome. That's strong and provides insight to future buyers. So plan your testimonials accordingly. All right. So here is a free trial follow-up email. Again, love the personalization in the beginning. I think that's a great idea. And then we go into, hi, my name is Simon, and I am the marketing and sales manager at blank, the home of blank. So we don't want to start off an email talking about ourselves. We want to start off the email talking about them. Especially, and Simon did have a great signature. I want to give him credit there. But he had a great signature that told me his name, told me his title, told me his phone number, told me his email. There's no need to repeat that in the beginning. That's prime location for us to just dive right in and focus on how your product can help them. Sorry, click that. There we go. All right, and then also I noticed some spelling errors in here. You know, the I's not capitalized, the D isn't capitalized, I's not capitalized down here. Again, those little typos. Another big issue or typos people tend to make is your and your, there and there. Be careful with those. That can just automatically set a bad impression. And this is another example of a little too much going on. So this email says, you're here to answer any of my questions about my trial. We also can set up a live demo to go step by step and also check out these videos. You know, that's, again, overwhelming, not one purpose. The whole thing's about the trial, so let's focus on the trial and following up on the trial and getting them on the phone. You know, with trial leads, I'm sure as you all know, those are great to get on the phone, and you're going to learn the most about that buyer by having a conversation with them. So focus this on trying to get a hold of them and use the videos and use a live demo as little nurture emails, all with the goal of let's schedule something, let's continue that conversation. But all in at once is a little too much. And also we say then at the very bottom, I'll get in touch with you in a couple of days to see what you think. Again, see what I think. My first reaction is see what I think about what? The trial, the demo, the videos, which one? So be consistent there, and a couple of days, in my opinion, is a little too long. You know, in between these emails, you should be calling them, whether you want to leave a voicemail or not, trying to get a hold of them and trying to, again, continue that conversation. Okay, so here is an email. It's a little different. It is for renewal of a customer. First thing I noticed, we don't need, of course, the hi, my name is Tom, I'm your new account manager. Again, Tom had a great signature. Good to go there. But this is, of course, a little too long. And looking at this, I think there's 3 emails we could easily split this up into. So the first one, hi, Ashley, I left you a voicemail because I noticed your program is expiring soon. Wanted to check in, see how everything was going, and reach out about the benefits of renewing. When are you free for a call? Great, that goes out. Next email a couple days later. Hey, Ashley, following up, I noticed you're running blank unlimited. By renewing, you get a free upgrade. Would love to discuss this with you. You know, the whole about all of it, what it includes in that little second paragraph. And then, great, when are you free for a call? Few days after that. Hey, Ashley, reached out a couple times about renewing your customer care program. You know, you have this free upgrade opportunity, and I've attached a free quote for you. You know, would really love an opportunity to talk through this with you. Let me know when you have some time. Having something like that, you could even include, instead of including everything that the program includes right here, maybe create a link. You know, that on like a web page somewhere that you could add the link into the email, so then you could track how many people are clicking that to see what that program is, what's included in it. Do love the ending of, is there a good time to schedule a phone call and discuss your organization needs? So good ending, you know, at least of the final email of trying to get that question and get that phone call, but a little too much in the beginning. We could easily cut this into 3. Okay, so this next example is an interesting one. This is actually for our pay-per-lead follow-up here at Capterra. If you're not familiar with our pay-per-lead program, it's our program for buyers who don't want to do their own research. You know, they would rather speak to a completely neutral third party here at Capterra tell us all about their requirements, their needs, their budget. We write it up, send it to the vendor so they can view everything except the contact details. And if it looks like a good fit, then that software company could choose to purchase that lead for the contact details. So what's really key, and this is actually going to be our last example, but what's really key about this email is making sure that you're taking advantage of the fact that you have all of their requirements up front before the outreach. So knowing that, good afternoon, blank, great. I recently received information about your CMMS project from Capterra. Love that. For pay-per-lead, they would have had at least a 10 or 15-minute conversation with someone at Capterra, and tying that together, making sure that the buyer knows that you are reaching out as one of the solutions that we matched you with. Love it. Tie it to Capterra, then move on about their needs. Based on your notes from Capterra, you are looking for a new solution that will, and you list them. So I like the idea of listing some of their needs, but one thing we're missing here is how your software helps with those needs. So it doesn't need to be very in-depth, but we should say something about how you guys specialize in these, or anything that's tying to just you listing what they already know they need isn't very helpful. And then we immediately dive into now's a perfect time to buy. I don't think it's bad to necessarily bring up them buying in this email. I mean, these are demo-ready leads, but it may be a little alarming if we lead with buying before even here's your link, or this is how we can have a demo. Or, you could, if you didn't hear from them or wanted to include that in outreach a little later on, but the key is to start with that demo. And also, you guys are paying for these leads. You've paid for these demo-ready contact details in all of the requirements. So instead of including a link to a quick demo, I probably suggest trying to have a live demo with them. Get them on the phone as quickly as possible. With the pay-per-lead program, we do ask how many vendors the buyer wants to hear from, but it's usually between 3 to 5. So there is some competition there of you're going to want to be jumping on these and reaching out to these buyers as quickly as possible. And then again, with the ending, we want to be proactive instead of reactive here, asking for a call. Are you free at blank time? Instead of let me know a day and time that works best for you. Offer something, have a question that then they have to respond to. And I got to give Lauren credit here. She also had a great signature here with her company name, direct line, email, website, and a little tagline for her company. So good job there. Great. So those are some recommendations for you guys. I'm going to move into the question side of things. My colleagues showing me a lot of great ones you guys have sent in. Okay, so the first one is, what if I can't do personalization with my emails? Okay, so if you don't have the ability to do personalization in your emails, I'd suggest at least trying to do some sort of industry personalization, or like common benefits that you've seen a lot of your customers have. And, if you are interested in looking into email marketing or marketing automation software, that is a pretty basic feature. And the personalization has been proven to increase your open rates and click-through rates. Okay, let's see. Okay, what performs better, plain text emails or design template? Okay, that's a good question. I think it depends on the reason for the follow-up. For example, sending an actual ebook or an actual white paper, a design template may work fine or work better. But if the follow-up is for, a free trial or a demo, plain text would probably be better for that, and it seems more personal, but I think that's definitely worth testing. Okay, what types of questions have you found to be best to ask at the end of an email? It's a really great question, and I think the big thing with that one is test it. You know, each follow-up, each buyer that you're trying to get a hold of, try a different email and see what's working best. In my experience, the scheduling a call works well, or tying it to something that you know they were interested in, like the first example when I was talking about, or the second example, I think, when I was talking about they downloaded a white paper for the ROI of forecasting. So tying that to currently, how are you currently forecasting sales? You make it about them. Okay, so if you have a nurture track, how many days do you recommend between emails? All right, that's another great question. It really depends. When a lead comes in, I recommend being on top of it. I'd suggest calls and nurture emails every 2 to 4 days in the beginning. And then as it continues, you can absolutely space that out more. For example, I actually can use a Capterra example for this. Our pay-per-lead advisors are calling buyers that come in anywhere between 6 to 9 times. And then we also have a nurture track that has 6 emails on it, all within the first 30 days. And then actually the last email, which has worked well for us, so share that with you guys, maybe you could try something similar, is our last email in our nurture track, which is probably 30 or so days after they would have come in, is something about, you know, I'm closing your request for help, like please let me know if you do need any help finding software. And that actually works pretty well. People will respond and be like, I'm really sorry, I've been really busy, yes, I still need help, can we schedule a call? Then of course we'll continue that conversation. After about 30 days of someone being unresponsive, I would definitely suggest you put them on more of like an education-based track and just nurture them until maybe they should then again show interest with you guys. Okay, one question is, great, how do I sign up for pay-per-lead? So actually pay-per-lead isn't live in all of our Capterra categories right now. You're able to check if you log into your Capterra vendor portal and go to the leads tab and see if there's any available leads in your queue there. That would be, I think we're live in about almost 30 categories, or 30 sectors, excuse me. So if you do see leads in that queue, check them out. You can view all of them. You know, there's a couple clicks before you'd actually be purchasing them, so don't worry about that. And if you do see leads in your queue, but you're not enrolled in the program, you know, my email and name is right on this slide. Please feel free to email me, and I'm happy to help you get set up with that. Okay, what if I can't do a short email because I have a lot to say and can't cut it because it's all important? What do you recommend? Well, I'm not saying cut it completely. To be fair, I'm actually suggesting we split it up. So when it's all together, it's just, it's too overwhelming. So when you are able to split it up into multiple emails, you're giving yourself more opportunities to nurture these people and get a hold of them with original outreach content over a course, you know, of a couple weeks or a month, whatever you choose. Okay. How do I know if my email is mobile friendly? So really, I think the best way to test that is to send it to yourself, you know, and check it on your smartphone or, you know, your friends if you don't have one. And also, if you do have a marketing automation software, you are able to send test emails from it. So really, probably the best way would be just to test it out. And then one of the last questions, What if I don't need to ask a question and the email is only to inform them? Right, that's a good question. Really, if you don't ask a question, you're missing an opportunity to potentially nurture someone to a sale. It may take a little longer, the white paper leads and whatnot. They may not be ready to jump into a conversation with you right now, but if you're asking the right questions and you're showing interest in them and how you can help them specifically and how your product is going to make their life easier or save them time and save them money, in the long run, it's going to benefit you because they're going to remember that, and that conversation is going to continue, and you never know what it could lead to. All right. Well, I think that is all the time that we had today. We were trying to keep this webinar a little bit on the shorter end for you guys. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk or listen to me and learn about how to improve your vendor outreach. If there's any questions that I didn't get to, we will be responding to you and getting those answers to you. And if you have any questions specifically for me, please feel free to email me. It's kconnolly@capterra.com. We're always happy to help, and I hope you all have a wonderful weekend and holiday.